So I've been using Vim for a little while now, not as long as some people, but long enough that I've discovered quite a bit about the application. Every once in a while, when I'm working in Vim, one way or another, I figure out a new trick or discover a capability that Vim has, and it totally blows my mind. So that's what this video is. There are a lot of lists and articles online with Vim tips and tricks and plugins and everything else, but this video is just from one relatively new Vim user to another, and it's a list of all the things that have blown my mind thus far. If I had stumbled across a video like this my first or second week using Vim, it would have absolutely rocked my world, so that's where I'm setting my aim here. The first thing that I want to talk about is Vim's ability to use multiple tabs. This is a trick that I actually just recently learned, and it may very well be what prompted me to make this video in the first place. So right now, we're in the directory for my personal website. This is a great example of a setup where I might like to use multiple tabs in Vim. I have at least one HTML document, maybe more, as well as a CSS document and a JavaScript document that I want to be editing at the same times. So tabs is a pretty good solution for that. So of course, you can open up any file the way that you normally would. And I'll just open up my HTML document here as an example. But then if we use this nice little command called tab edit, we can open up a file in a new tab. So I'll go ahead and open up my CSS file. And you can see now, if we look up here, we have two different tabs open. I'm just gonna turn off the transparent background so we can get a little bit of a better look at that. And we can actually open up as many tabs as we want. I'm gonna open up the JavaScript file here as well. And we can also navigate the tabs pretty easily. Typing GT will take you back a tab, while typing G_T will take you forward a tab. But we can also go to a specific tab by just picking a tab number, for example, this second tab here, which will be our CSS file, and typing into GT. And it'll take us to that exact tab. Also, if you're interested, there's a quick way to open up multiple files in tabs from the command line. If we were to just type vim-p, we can now just type in file names. So I'll do the index.html and the CSS file, as well as this JavaScript file. And now if we open up Vim, we have multiple tabs here that we can navigate through. It's just like it was before, except we've done it all from the command line. Now, if that didn't impress you, here's something that definitely will, and I'll hop into full screen mode for this one. Vim has the ability to allow you to save custom workspaces to open up on their own. So let me give you an example here. So I'll do a vsplit here, and then I'll just open up maybe like my CSS file here, and maybe I'll resize that window a little bit, and then I can maybe open up another file. We'll do a standard split this time. And I'll open up the JavaScript file and resize this here. This is a fairly good way to go about working on things. I can have multiple HTML files open in tabs over here in this window, my CSS open over here, JavaScript down here at the bottom corner. And this is like a pretty standard way that I would work. But the cool thing is that we have one little command. It's called MAKC. Session, and what this allows us to do is save a custom file that we can open in Vim whenever we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in MAKC session, I'll give it a file name, I'll just say file name, and then you add the .vim extension to it. And then what I can do is I'll just quit out of all of these windows. And if I list all the files in my directory here, you can see I have a new file called filename.vim. And all I have to do is type in vim-S, and then when I select that file name, it will open up that session exactly as I saved it before, and I can get right to work. So now let's take a look at spell checking in Vim. I talked a little bit in a past video about how the vast majority of what I use Vim for is standard markdown writing and things of the such. So Vim wasn't even a real editor in my head until I figured out how to turn on spell checking, which if you don't know how to do is as easy as going into your vimrc and adding one line here, set spell. But that on its own isn't really all that interesting. What is somewhat interesting is the way that Vim actually enables spell checking. Like most text editors or word processors, Vim has a dictionary that comes pre-installed with the app, and it's user editable. However, Vim has multiple dictionaries for multiple languages, and you can actually use multiple dictionaries for different languages at the same time. To give you an example, I've loaded up a bit of text in English, and then the same bit of text translated to French. Of course, in the French version, Vim recognizes basically none of these words and tags everything as being misspelled. So all we have to do is go into command mode and type in set spell lang equals, and then we can look up a language code to insert here. This information is actually pretty readily available. All you have to do is Google ISO language codes, and you can find the language codes really super easily, as there's a Wikipedia list and all sorts of other websites that have the lists for you. In my case, the language code for French is just FR_CH. And if I go ahead and hit enter, you will get a little message here saying that Vim can't find a spell file for this language and will ask me if I want to go ahead and download one, in which case I can hit yes. It'll ask you what directory you want to write it to. I always just put it in my .vim directory. That's because that's the folder that I have version controlled, and then we'll always back up. So I'm just going to hit 1 here, and then it'll download a suggestion file and all sorts of stuff. All in all, this will take a few minutes to download. Obviously, it depends on the internet connection and that type of thing. But when it's done downloading, you can see now that Vim is actually reading French on its own. So if you want to take this just a step further, what you can do is go ahead and open up your vimrc one more time. And then all you have to do is come down. It doesn't really matter where in your vimrc. I like to keep it right above this spot where I turned on spell checking in Vim by default. And what I'll do is you enter a command, set spell language, the same command that we use to download the dictionary. And then all you have to do is type in all of the language codes that you want to use. So as you can see, I've already downloaded English and German, and I can just add on French right here to the end. And now whenever I open Vim, by default, it will be spell checking in English and French and German, and I'm all good to go. Next up, let's take a look at completion in Vim. There are a ton of plugins that accomplish this type of thing, but most of them require very specific configuration or a special installation that's compiled with Lua or Python or some other flavor. So you may be interested to know that Vim actually comes with a completion engine built in. Obviously, this is one of those Vim features that's going to be much more relevant for developers out there, a group of which I am not a part, admittedly. So I'll try to sort of sloppily illustrate this here with a JavaScript document. So I'll just go back to my site directory here. So the first thing that we can do is, if I come down to the bottom of a document, I'm just going to try to recreate this little function I have set up here as quickly as I can using Vim's completion engine. And so if I just type F and then hit Control N, you can see Vim will automatically go ahead and fill in function for me. Now, if I want to type out the name of this function, I'll have to manually type that out, and I'll put in the parentheses and the squigglies. But then whenever I want to type var, same thing, Vim knows what I want. And as you can tell, I can actually get pretty far in much fewer keystrokes than I can in Vim by default by just using this one little setup. But when I get down to this if-else statement, I want to take a look at something else that Vim can do. So I'll start by typing out X. And then if I go ahead and hit Control N, Vim isn't going to know exactly what I'm trying to do, but it's going to try to guess for me. And so it'll pull up this little menu, and I can just kind of select what I want it to do. But of course, this gets even better. If I start to type out this function again, and instead of hitting Control N, I hit Control P, Vim is now going to, instead of searching forward, if you will, search backward, and restrict itself to only completing things that I've already typed in this document. Now, in a lot of ways, this is exponentially more powerful than the features we just looked at, because now we can use this completion engine to fill in the names of functions and all sorts of other things. In case you didn't catch on, there's a lot more to this feature. Do some Googling, you won't be disappointed. So next up, I want to take a look at file explorers in Vim. Vim is a text editor through and through, obviously, but if you want to, you can use it as a sort of an IDE. And if that wasn't clear by the ability to save workspaces or the ability to use tabs, Vim actually comes out of the box with a few file explorers built right in. The quickest and easiest file explorer that Vim has is just called Explore. If we go into command mode and type in Explore, we get a nice little file explorer. We can navigate through this with Vim keys, or we can even hit the backslash and search through files and folders the way that we would search through a document. With this, we can easily navigate files with a much more intuitive interface. We don't have to know the names of files to open them, and it makes working on larger projects exponentially easier. But if that wasn't enough for you, there are actually also a few lesser known commands. There's one called hex, another one called sex, and another one called lex. And these are all actually just file explorers that behave in slightly different ways. Now, of course, they all maintain the same functionality. You can navigate through your files and search through your files, but they just behave slightly differently. My personal favorite is one called lex. And the thing that separates this apart is that I can navigate through my files and open files, but this window will always sort of stay open. So I always have a bird's eye view, if you will, of my project. Usually what I would do is I would type in Lex and then add an exclamation point at the end. All this is going to do is have it open on the left side of the screen rather than the right. And this is probably the closest thing to Nerdtree, but this is probably my best way to work. I actually have this mapped to a keyboard shortcut. So anytime I want, I can just hit a keyboard shortcut, 2 keyboard shortcuts actually, and have this file explorer open up. And that works really, really well for me. Next up, I'm going to take a look at an odd feature that comes with Vim. This feature isn't borrowed from Sublime Text. If anything, Sublime borrowed it from Vim. Vim is a much older text line, but probably the best contemporaneous example to compare this feature to is multiple cursors in Sublime. So if I were to open up a file in Sublime, let's see, I've got one here, luckily enough. What I can do is I can easily select multiple lines in Sublime and type on them very quickly and easily. This is a great feature, a very well-loved feature. You know, if I'm being totally honest, I don't use it all that often, but when I do want it, it's like the best tool for the job. Now, of course, Vim has a feature exactly like this. It's a bit of a more technical and archaic name. It's called Visual Block Mode, but it works just as well. All we have to do is hit Control V, and then we can select as many lines as we want using Vim's incredible movement command. So instead of going through and clicking on multiple lines, I can just hit 10J, and now I've selected the beginning of all of my lines. Now what I can do is I'll hit capital I to go into insert mode, and I'll type in obviously the first word of this sentence, and then all I have to do is hit escape, and Vim will fill in everything for me. Now, of course, you can also add things to the end of the lines. If I come to the end of a line here, I can go back into visual block mode, and I'll just select all of the lines once again. And rather than hitting I to insert text, I'll hit A to append text, and then I'll just finish off the sentence here, hit escape, and Vim will do all of the work for me. But of course, Vim wouldn't be Vim if all it was enabling us to do is use features that are already available in other text editors. So let's get a bit more complex here and record a macro. Fair warning before we get started here, if there was just one feature that you Googled later on after watching this video to get some more information on, this would be the one to take a look at. Macros are wickedly powerful in Vim. I could have easily filled this entire video's runtime just talking about this one feature, and I barely know anything about this. That notwithstanding, on its face, recording macros is relatively simple. All we have to do is make sure that we're in normal mode, and we're going to press the letter Q, and then give it a keyword, a letter of the alphabet. In this case, I'm going to use A. And you can see now we're recording a macro, pun not intended. We're recording a macro, and we're going to trigger that macro later by typing in the @ symbol and then A. We could do the same thing here. If I were to end the macro, I could record on B, and now we're recording to @B. Pretty straightforward. So I'll just record to C just for our purposes. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to come over maybe 5 words to the second instance of jumps, and I'll change the word to over, hit escape, come back to the beginning of the line, and then maybe go down 1 line. And then as long as we're in normal mode, we can just hit Q, and our recording is saved. Now, if we want to replay this macro, all we have to do is type in @C, and we can go through and do that on every line. We could also just take a look and realize, hey, we've got 6 of these left, so I'll just do 6 @C. It'll do everything for us. I actually think I missed one there. But you can see, hopefully, how macros are wickedly powerful, and if there's anything you can't get to with visual block mode, recording a quick macro is incredibly easy, so you should definitely check it out. But that's all for this video. If I didn't already make it clear, there's a ton of extra information available online and in other videos about all of the features that we touched on here, but hopefully, at the very least, you found some great stuff to Google. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next video.